Good evening. Welcome to the Cumberland County Commissioners meeting for Monday, March 9, 2020. I would, to start our meeting, I would, first I call the meeting to order, then I would invite anyone who wishes to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. First, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the February 10 meeting.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that passes unanimously. I see that there are no informational reports or presentations for today. Okay, good. Next, I'm looking for a motion to go into executive session for the reasons stated in the minutes, or in the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion about this? All in favor?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. So we're going to be in executive session. For those of you watching in the future on tape delay, you'll miss that part, but stay tuned and we'll have the second half of the meeting shortly. Okay, and welcome back. This is the continuation of the Monday, March 9, 2020 meeting of the Cumberland County Commissioners. We've just come out of an executive session. Next item on the agenda is comments from the public. Any member of the public wishing to come and speak for up to 3 minutes on anything may use this opportunity. And seeing none, I will close public comment. Next is the consent agenda approvals.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the consent agenda approvals.
Second.
Consent agenda items, I'm sorry.
And for Barb, could you read the titles of those just so that the people watching this later will know what we were talking about?
Okay, consent agenda item 20020, approval for purchase of one 2020 Ford Police Interceptor Utility AWD bid for CID, which is detectives from Kirk Auto Group. Total cost $34,180.14 from account number 11-106-06-7345. Agenda item 20021, approval of purchase of 820 Ford Police Interceptor Utility AWD bid for patrol from Kirk Auto Group. Total cost of $272,488 from account number 11-106-06-7345. Consent agenda item 20022, approval of the Cumberland County Emergency Communications Service contract with the town of Harrison from July 1st of 2019 to June 30th of 2022. And item 20023, approval of the Cumberland County Emergency Communications Service contract with the town of North Yarmouth from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2022.
Thank you. Unless anybody wants to pull any of those off, we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. The consent agenda passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, next is new business, item number 20-024, acceptance of the Maine Mariner proposal for arena bench modifications. Who is speaking to this? Jim.
Thank you. This item is being brought forward on a positive recommendation from the Recreation Board of Trustees up at the Cross Insurance Arena. And it is a proposal that was brought forth to the trustees from the Maine Mariners, in which the Maine Mariners is requesting county's permission to move the players' benches from the Free Street side of the building or the arena to the Spring Street side of the arena. If you're familiar with the arena, Currently, the penalty boxes are on the Spring Street side, and behind the penalty boxes is access into the locker rooms. The current design nationally for professional hockey ice rinks is to have the players' benches in that location so that there is quick and easy access out to the locker rooms for equipment managers, medical staff, if they need to get a player out behind for any reason for health. One of the examples they just gave us was the attention of medical staff at a recent NHL game when a player, I think it was for the Anaheim Ducks, had a heart attack on the bench. They were able to get medical attention instantly there. If that happened here at the Cross Insurance Arena, medical staff would have to make their way across the ice to the bench. It would be a much tougher process and time-consuming. So they're wishing to bring the players' benches over and then flipping the penalty boxes to where the players' benches are today. There is a scorer's table. The official scorer's table currently resides between the visitors and home bench. That scorer's table will remain because there is a lot of wiring and it would be cost prohibitive to move that. So each penalty box will flank either side of that scorer's area. In addition to flipping the benches and penalty boxes, there's some impacts, and the impacts are to the ice level suites down on currently on either side of the penalty boxes. I believe they're called D1 and F1 suites. Those suites would then be relocated over to behind the new penalty box area on the Free Street side because of those suite spaces would be then occupied with the player benches. What else do I want to talk about this? In addition to the relocation of the suites would have the inability to replicate the one-for-one suite format or makeup. Right now, the suites have a kind of like a bar table for some of the seats. That would not be able to be achieved on the other side of the rink. However, the Cross Insurance staff, they are looking at actually creating a beer garden or a function area down in AA1, which would allow those bleachers to be pushed in, and there would be an ability to create a mini bar down there, a gathering area for big functions or company functions or just an open area to sell additional tickets if people would rather stand and watch a game and have a couple of beers or sodas. So they're looking to replicate new areas of the arena into somewhat function areas, in addition to relocating these two suites as part of the bench swap. The Mariners have reached out to their season ticket holders. As you can expect, there are a certain number of ticket holders that buy their season tickets because they want to be behind the players' bench, or they want to be behind the visitors' bench so they can heckle them all game long. So they have reached out. They have received comments from 3 season ticket holders. 2 of them have already relocated their seats to the other side of the rink. So I guess there's one outlier out there. They're still working with that person. Timeline would be soon after our last event in June, which is June 15th. We have about 6 weeks downtime, which we typically use for maintaining the arena for the upcoming season that starts in September. That would be the time that this swap would take place. The Maine Mariners are estimating the cost to be somewhere between $13,000 and $15,000. They have said that would be a cost that they would be assuming. But to add on to that, the trustees, in their motion of recommendation, said that they were only approving this recommendation and bringing it forward on the condition that the Mariners pay for this improvement. Other than that, I think this item is in order for Commissioner's review and action this evening. There are 2 diagrams, a current diagram and a proposed diagram within your packets, and I can answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Motions?
Question.
Sure.
Was there a stipulation whether this work would stay in state, or is it going out to bid? The 13 or the 15,000?
The majority of the work includes two items. One, they got to do a little bit of concrete removal because the current suites behind each penalty box, they kind of have a step up. So they got to remove that step up. And they're working with a contractor currently who may be doing it for a one-for-one in-kind services type deal to save money. But that would be really the only vendor that would be needed. The remaining dollar cost is associated different pieces to the dasher boards and glass that they would need to fill in the gaps when they relocate the benches over to the other side. So there's very little contractor work other than that concrete work.
So this being a Wood County, our facility, it doesn't have to go out, to bid?
Our requirements under the admin regulations is that anything over $20,000 goes
that's
out to
right.
bid.
Okay.
Anything under $20,000, you get 3 quotes.
What happens if it goes over with the 15,000? They know that they have to, to pay that?
They know that they have to pay
So nothing will come
that.
back to the county?
They feel very confident that they've already spec'd this out. They've been working on this for about 6 or 8 months now, and they've explored all costs, so they feel as though that range and cost to do the work is pretty solid.
We all know about construction with pricing.
I'll move passage.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Jim, that passes unanimously. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next is old business. Second read, this is item 20-2025, amending the county commissioners' bylaws of December 2011, second reading. Jim, can you walk us through that?
Sure. In February, I think it was February 10th, the commissioners were first introduced to this as first reading, and at that meeting, they set this evening as second reading and final action. The charter requires, when bylaws are changed, that the commissioners need to have a first reading and second reading on the item. And the proposal that I set before you in February was, since the work that we're undergoing in changing our budget year from a calendar year to a fiscal year, it was in need of changing the bylaws also. And so I brought forth amended bylaws that would strike the January 1st to December 31st and add July 1st to June 30th. But I also added some language around the transition year, and it reads, the transition year is January 1st, 2021. The creation of a 6-month budget for January 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2021. Subsequently, a 12-month budget will be created covering July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. The 6-month budget will be prorated over 1 to 5 years, depending upon the wishes of an individual municipalities. The prorated budget will be included in the annual fiscal year warrant until such time the 6-month budget is fully funded. So that is the changes to the bylaws. These bylaws, like I said, are dictated by county charter, and that two readings are necessary. And so hence this is the second reading and final action, hopefully tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Second reading, comments, discussion, or motion?
Move passage.
I'll
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Yes, Steve.
I hate to be a picky here, but since the managers changed some of the language, don't we have to hold off?
I have an answer for that. I don't think you do. You can amend it if you want.
Yeah, I think we can.
You don't have to have 2 readings.
No,
on
it's
the
2
amendment.
readings.
We
Yeah,
don't have
but
to
you don't have to have
of the
2
same-
readings on an
of the
amendment.
same- of the identical thing.
Yeah, no.
First reading was in February.
Right, I understand that, but didn't you just change it by adding the transition period?
No, that was in February,
was the
too.
original, wasn't
I
it?
haven't
Yeah, I think
touched
it was,
it.
I was gonna say, I think he's
Yeah.
reading the, I didn't hear any changes, but I mean, I have to say my memory back that far is a little fuzzy, but. Okay, further comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous, unanimously passes. Thank you very much. Next is item number 20-026, authorizing the county manager to suspend portions of the non-union personnel policy in response to potential circumstances as a result of COVID-19 epidemic. Jim, what do you want to do?
Thank you.
Send everybody home for 6 months? And
I'll tell you, this is a strange request, but one that I think that having this in our back pocket and able to have the permission or the prior permission by the county commissioners to suspend portions of the non-union personnel policy will give staff the greatest flexibility to react to what we are going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis for the next 30 days, 60 days, 120 days. Who knows how long it's going to impact us. There are many different topics that we're talking about amongst ourselves and how they could interrelate with our 400 employees. We want to be as fair as possible and work with our employees. And to do so may be to think outside the box on some items and not be restricted by what is in print in our non-union personnel policy. This is something that I cannot give you an example this evening, what would be coming to you, what would be suspended, only that I would guarantee that prior to suspending any portion of this non-union personnel policy, the commissioners will be apprised of the direction that we're going in so that you can ask the appropriate questions if need be. Other than that, I'd ask for your acceptance of this, allowing staff the greatest flexibility in moving forward into somewhat of uncharted territory. Thank you.
Yes, thoughts, discussion?
Move passage.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That seems to be unanimous.
Comment?
Oh, comment, yes, sorry.
What about the union? What about union parts? Are we
Yeah.
A
coming
little
in
bit more
conflict?
complex. I probably kicked that to Don. Your thoughts around union?
Well, typically in collective bargaining agreements, they have a section about emergency operations in cases where emergency is declared, and I think one could make the case that this would be declared an emergency if it really hits us regionally. You do what you have to do, case by case, and if the union files grievances, they file grievances, and you deal with them after. But that's one of the reasons why you put emergency under the extenuating or emergency conditions. We can pretty much do what we want to do. Not to say the union may not like all of it, but we have to manage the operation. And I know that there's a number of things that my peer group in Human Resources is looking at, following the CDC guidelines and such, and in talking with the sheriff this morning on a particular path that we might follow, but we are taking a hard look at all of this.
Okay,
Good.
yeah, all right. Good, thank you.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for being out in front
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the serious issues.
Okay, comments from the county manager.
I have a few this evening. First, let's continue our talk on the coronavirus. This is something that staff has been working on for now a week and a half. EMA is sharing information from the Maine CDC and the US CDC on proactive measures that we can be taking. I have met with staff, county staff and state staff, stateside staff on some initial proactive measures in terms of cleaning. We have instituted a a wipe down of surfaces, doorknobs, push bars, things like that, anything that people touch on a routine basis. That is getting a wipe down in mid-morning, late morning every day, and then the cleaning crew at night is doing another wipe down of everything. We are working and having discussions this week on what it looks like if we need to start quarantining employees and moving employees off-site because of the rapid infestation of the coronavirus within our building here. We joke that the most important person in our organization and the one to protect is the payroll clerk. But that's the most serious too, so we're trying to keep her as healthy as possible, and good thing she is very healthy on her own, so, but it is something that's, if we need to close this building, and that's not uncommon, we're seeing or hearing buildings closing down just north of Boston today, to try to stop the spread down there. What's that look like? How do we work from home? We've had staff members last week bring their computers home and just test to dial in and see whether they can work. So we're doing this trial stuff. This Friday, I've put together a meeting with department heads to talk over more about what the next steps are, and what if we do have an instance where we're closing buildings or need to shut down a department. What's that look like? And so EMA has been terrific throughout this whole thing, and staff has been great, and we're pushing forward. We have, facilities has put additional hand sanitizer stations around the courthouse, so if you see an abundance of those sticking off the wall, that's because we're making an effort to make sure that people use them. And tomorrow I have a meeting with Justice Kennedy and Judge Chapman to talk about what the state side's going to do and whether the state courts has talked about to what threshold will it be that they start doing alternative measures, like video arraignment they've been talking about. Don't know if they've talked to the sheriff about that yet. So that's something that I'll learn more about what the state's talking about on the state court side tomorrow. So lots going on in that, and it's better to have the conversations up front and when we can versus being reactionary. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Jim, is there any way to get some of this information that would really help the public on the website?
I noticed just yesterday that Travis did put something up on the website.
Yeah, we have now a permanent top bar on our website, no matter what page you're on, that provides a link to the Maine CDC's website. It's the best place for stateside resources.
And they're telling us to refer people to Maine CDC or US CDC and not try to make up your own stuff. Yeah. They're the pros, they know what they're doing, and that's where we're funneling everyone. Yeah. Just so I touch upon it, I've been working with the Cross Insurance Arena also. As you can imagine, that's a large gathering area. There's a lot of talk around looking at these large gathering areas and prohibiting them. But the Cross Insurance Arena has laid out a very extensive game plan in terms of putting out additional hand sanitizer, cleaning surfaces, cleaning handrails, and so they've really stepped up, if not doubled, maybe tripled their efforts over at the arena during this time and moving forward. Spinning into the cross insurance, my throat's dry. CIA. The last 2 weeks we've had some very good acts. Mercy Me was over there 2 weeks ago, which went very well. I think we were about 98% sold out. This past Thursday we had Kane Brown, which was a complete sellout, and it was a really cool experience to once again see a rocking crowd over there, even though it was country. Not my favorite genre. It was a
Got to widen your horizon.
it was a great event, and many participated in that concert, so it was great. The hockey team is in playoff bound, so when they start talking number of games to clinch a playoff spot. That's a positive thing in that regards. So in the next 2 or 3 months, we are having a busy season over at the Cross Insurance Arena. There's a number of acts booked, and so it's going to be a busy next 2 or 3 months going into the summertime. We are working with North Yarmouth on providing GIS services. That would be our second community. Baldwin was our first, and North Yarmouth we just gave a price to last week to take over their GIS. As the commissioners are aware, 2 weeks ago we were very fortunate enough to hit a dip in the market and refinance the 2012 Cross Insurance Arena bond and the 2012 county bond, which was much less. We, at the morning of the sale, we hit the historical low in the bond market, and we were able to, over a 20-year period, save $1.7 million on the bond. So that was a very positive morning for us here at the county. Then lastly, and Travis will probably talk a little bit more about this, that we continue to work with the towns on expanding Wi-Fi. And we've got back our first step of our report, and we're moving through to the next step. And I'll stop there and let Travis talk a little bit more about what the next steps are. But that concludes my communications. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance Director Alex, any comments?
Just a few things. For anyone who recently received the 1095C forms from Finance, again, that's just a form that you really need to stick in with your taxes and whatever shoebox or other item you use, and that's really all you need to do with it. It doesn't actually serve as something you need to send in with there. It's just something we're required to give you. With regard to that bond issuance, I'd really like to thank Dick Ranigan in particular on that. When he sounded the alarm that we needed to jump on that and jump on that quickly, it was a bit of a mountain of work to get it out there, but he sort of kept us pushing in that direction, and obviously it worked out great, so that's good. Final piece, the main bond bank application is in for the smaller issuance that we were doing for the radio tower repeaters. So that will be issued later in the spring, but the application is in. We've gone back and forth a little bit with their adjusters, and all seems well there. And that's all I got.
Good. Thank you. Don, do you want to have any comments about HR or?
Just a couple.
Okay.
Just a couple comments. Just to let everybody know, again, I keep saying it, that Cumberland County, we're now hiring. Anybody interested in looking for work, we go to our website, www.cumberlandcounty.org, and it'll take you to a link also to the Sheriff's Office website where there are applications for employment. Currently, corrections officers are an acute need. We are, at present, we are down 36 corrections officers at the Cumberland County Jail. The good news is that we have 10 candidates who are actually in the hiring process, various phases, so we're hoping to get all of those 10 through, which is a much streamlined process than used to exist. Staff, HR staff, and staff at the Sheriff's Department, the Sheriff's Office, have been active and aggressive with our recruitment efforts, and we've been attending every job fair that we can find and know about. Last week we attended a job fair at the University of Southern Maine, and we've got a couple coming up next month at Southern Maine Community College. The problem is we bring people in, but we do still have a lot of people out on family medical leave, 24 to be exact. So it's a balancing act. The other thing is that we'll be going into mediation, contract mediation with the National Correctional Employees Union in April 8th, 9th, and 10th. We have 3 full days set aside to see if we can arrive at a tentative agreement on a successor collective bargaining agreement. So, thank you.
Travis.
Yeah, I'll start with finishing Jim's thought on Wi-Fi. Just a real quick refresher, where we started with this a couple of months ago is we identified a handful of standards that we wanted to follow when we looked at which communities might make sense to approach about establishing a public Wi-Fi district. We approached 9 of them. 7 responded that they expressed interest. We brought them here to the county with a contractor, and we worked with them to design sort of their ideal public Wi-Fi district based on where their people tend to congregate or where they're encouraging their people to congregate. What makes sense to have a place where people may want to get online for a few hours at a time. What our contractor has now done is taken those maps and approached several engineering firms to get a sense of scale of the cost of engineering all 7 districts, which is not building them, but it's identifying the actual spots, maybe the public or private entities that would host the hot spots in order to canvass the area that we've drawn with them. So now we have a very good sense of what we need to ask for engineering and an idea of what it ought to cost. And so Jim and I are now going to develop an RFP to have the engineering design done. At the end of that, we'll have a firm cost estimate, including the cost and complexity of equipment that needs to be bought in each town. We can bring that to all of you, and so you'll now have a full, clear picture of what the cost and scale is, whether we want to set limits for investing equally in each community, or whether we want to invest where the need is or what. But we're very close to that step now where we'll get the full rundown of how much it costs everywhere, and then we can decide, what our short and long-term commitments are, and how we want to work with our municipal partners, potentially our business partners, to make this initiative happen. We just in the past few weeks received notice that we're being awarded just shy of $100,000 through the intergovernmental. Through a contractor that won an award from the Department of Justice. And this is the second step in the grant that we won last year, which was a planning grant to help establish that smooth handoff for inmates at the jail who are being treated for substance use disorder to be reintroduced to the community. And so the result of that planning grant was then that we were able to apply for this larger amount of funds to start to implement some of the things that we think may be helpful. We are a subaward of this intergovernmental research firm. We will pass pretty much all of the money through to subawards of our own. So it's 3 layers of awardees, which means 3 contracts requiring different adherence to government standards. And right now we're just sort of combing through those contracts so we know exactly what to ask of our subawardees. But what we're doing with the funds is ultimately 3 things. The first is that we're paying for a database that can be aggregated and shared among the partners involved in this initiative. So the staff at the facility, medical community, probation, sort of everybody who's involved in this transition out into the world. So that's one. The second is that we're bringing in a part-time peer navigator who will be that person who is the peer support person for the inmate when they're released. We'll make sure they get to their appointments, make sure they get to their housing, in many cases pick them up at the jail to prevent that sort of risky 24 hours when they walk out the door. So that's very exciting because that's something that is a proven critical thing immediately after release, is that there's somebody there to receive you. And the third thing is we're paying for a few months of sober housing, for necessary equipment, not prescriptions in this case, but care packages and things that make that transition out into the world a little bit more comfortable. So those are the things that we can do with these funds. They're pretty direct. They're all things that we've been doing on some level and hope to do more of, that don't get to the actual treatment part itself, but get to that really important handoff that will hopefully prevent recidivism and the sort of revolving door of people who are struggling with this disease.
Okay. Thank you. Barbara, anything from your perspective?
No, I don't. Thank you, though.
Thank you for getting supper for us tonight.
Oh, you're welcome, and I'm grateful for this beautiful weather.
Oh, isn't that nice? Yes. Comments from the county commissioners. Mr. Cloutier.
I have nothing.
I would just like to reiterate to the executive staff, County Manager Gailey and Alex, our finance director, the great job you did on the bond refinance, seizing the opportunity in a short period of time and saving the county taxpayers a ton of money in a tight environment was excellent work. We appreciate all the extra efforts that you both put in. And I have nothing further.
Sue.
No, I'm all set.
Steve.
I'm fine, thank you.
Sheriff, do you have anything to add to our?
I got 3 things. I just so brief you on.
Sure, please.
While I'm here.
You're not on the agenda, so now's a good time to do it.
Figured while I was here, I might as well stay. MAT program, we, as you know, started in September. We're up to 21 individuals. The phase 1 and phase 2 was phase 1, anyone coming in, getting released, they can opt to leave with Narcan. That had some hiccups, but that's moving along pretty good. The Portland Public Health gives us the Narcan, so there's no cost to the county. Phase number 2 was actually continuing people on the MAT program if they were on a bona fide program when they got arrested, so that they don't get off that, and then when they're released, they can go right back to it. There's 21 individuals, and again, that seems to be growing. There was some state money that I've still not heard from. I've talked to Gordon Smith a couple of times. We applied for it in November. Supposedly, if we had a program, then they would help us kick off with some assistance. That assistance is some of the medication costs. We didn't figure this into our budget for the budget we're in. Some of it's getting really difficult because of the fact that methadone, they actually have to load somebody up with a nurse, 2 people, transport them over to get methadone. And as that increases, if I have 3 people, generally they're not all at the same time. So it could be transport officers going over, 3 days in a row. Once we get over there, we get 6 days. So it's not like we're going every day, but it's still a bit problematic. Drug testing. We have to test them to make sure that even though they're on a medication-assisted program, if they're using some other illicit drugs, then they don't get to be part of the MAT program. So we didn't budget for that. And then lastly, just coordinating this stuff. It came at a perfect storm when Armor is struggling to get their roles of nurses beefed up, and then we've got the corrections dilemma of not having staff. So we're trying to do the best we can. The staff is doing a good job. We provide the MAT every morning at 7:30, and I believe GME is going to try to do a story on that in the next week or so as they're continuing on the opioid crisis. So it's going along. Stage 2, I'd hoped, would be kicked off by September, Stage 3, Phase 3. And that would be, anybody would be offered it if they were medically able to do that and it made sense. However, as time ticks on, I'm not sure that staffing-wise we're going to be able to do that, quite frankly. We have a new contract that potentially could come about at the Lake Region School System is looking at putting a school resource officer on starting next year. We went to them and told them there was a COPS grant that could save them money, but the superintendent is committed to making this happen, doesn't want to roll the dice that he may or may not get the grant. The grant wouldn't be announced until October. He wants to start off the 2021 school year with an SRO. So the plan is, if you remember right in the budget, there was an added position that would help with staff relief, and then in the summertime when things got busy, we would lose that to the town of Naples because they want some coverage there. It does make sense because that's one town, and when that person's out, that the deputies don't have to cover. But if this SRO comes on board, that could fix the Naples, which will mean that instead of being into the new deputy for 3/4 of the costs, it probably will be 100% if the SRO does come forward in the next year. But I can use it for staff relief, so really it's not a loss for any of us. It will help us with the overtime. COVID-19, coronavirus. We did call together a group last week from the jail, law enforcement, to look at what do we do. We can't stop answering phone calls. We can't shut down the jail. If we get an inmate that comes in, we might be able to handle the first 2 that are having a legitimate coronavirus or a COVID-19 process. We've got the negative pressure cell, and we could bunk them in medical. Beyond that, we're going to be looking into what do we do? Do we open another pod? Do we shut down CCC, move everyone into the jail, use the CCC as the place to put individuals over there? And then how can we reverse the flow of air, et cetera, to try to keep people safe? Law enforcement, guys, gals, they don't know what they're going to. They don't know who they're arresting. Unfortunately, the folks that we deal with sometimes are not the healthiest because they don't go to the doctor every day, et cetera. So it's a large effort. EMA was involved. It became real about 2 minutes into it that we should have invited Dawn for HR functions, but going forward, we'll be calling in HR as well. One of the things that we got to deal with is they talk about 60% alcohol in the cleaning. Can't use that in the jail by accreditation standards. So we got a hurdle to go over of what do we use for cleaning that's going to do the same thing and provide us a level of safety, if you will. We have some masks, but we weren't stocked up on a mask for something like this. Things like having an inmate go around with hand sanitizer to his pod using trustees every hour, and squirting some hand sanitizer and just asking the inmates to kind of clean their hands and stuff is some of the things that were thrown out. So they've been given about 2 weeks to come up with a plan to get it to the chief deputy on both sides. We use a lot of inmate labor to clean things up, and we kind of agreed that probably for the most part we'll use those in the prevention, but if we have a full-blown issue, then we're going to have to look at professional cleaners or something like that. Somebody that really knows what they're doing. Because again, I can send some of the office staff home, they can work from there, but again, a perfect storm of all it takes is a couple of corrections officers to go out, and then I have to quarantine them, and the problem we have now is going to be exacerbated. Lastly, on the hiring, we started Saturday of giving the alert tests. One of the issues we were finding out is the alert test, which is required for corrections and law enforcement by the academy. It's mandated. You got to have that before you apply. People were getting hung up in that. And the academy was giving alert tests once a month in Cumberland County. So I credit Captain Smith and his staff. They said, how about if we go to the academy and do it twice? So in other words, we'll be issuing the test 2 weeks, and then the academy will do it in 2 weeks. What we were finding out is if somebody missed the alert test by a day, they had to wait a month. And the way the jobs are, they just go off and find another job. So Saturday, because we want to do it on Saturdays and evenings, because if somebody's working a job and wants to make a career change, they can't necessarily do it Monday through Friday. So ours are going to be on weekends or nights. We're issuing the test at the sheriff's office, so hopefully that will help move what we think is a clog in the drain of hiring forward to try to be a little bit more proactive in our hiring. And that's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Questions? No, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then I would like to immediately
All set, Jason.
go into our workshop. Thanks,
Thank you.
Devin.